Can the folks hear me online? Can I get a thumbs up? Can you hear me online? Jason can hear us. Okay, good. So we'll start with the roll call. Matt Berry here, Vice Chair Lisa Guthrie.
Here.
Treasurer Charmin Burnham.
Here.
Secretary Michael Stringham.
Here.
Michael Rutkowski.
Here.
Pauline Nefsey is online. I can see her there. Jason Pulverari. He's online, but he's muted. Jan Barnes, I believe, couldn't make it today. She let us know. Patrick Allisey, I don't see him here, but I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up in a few minutes. Same with Jonathan Malahan. I know he's in town and should be here. Chuck Kinzer.
Here.
Yorkson Jean.
Here.
And Carolyn Sherwin is not here. And Jeff Frank let us know that he can't make it. So we do have a quorum. Michael?
Yes.
Fantastic. I think we were undefeated as far as having a quorum for the meetings, which is
amazing.
Amazing. Thank you. Approval of minutes. I believe the minutes were sent out by Michael last week. Hopefully people had a chance to review them, the minutes from our April meeting. Are there any revisions needed, or is there a motion to approve?
I will move to approve.
All right, Lisa, I move to approve. Chuck seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. And I'll just, yes, sir?
Does that include page 3?
Of the current agenda?
Yeah.
No.
Those are some proposed.
There's a date that's in the future.
Yes, yeah, we'll get to that. It's as part of the agenda, there is some proposed bylaw amendments that we have to give at least 14 days notice of. So we're kind of doing that in this meeting, and then at the next meeting, we'll vote on if we want to make those changes. So that's why it has a thing there. But good question. And at any point during the meeting, don't hesitate to raise your hand if you have a question. The way it works as far as the folks online, so we've got a microphone here and we've got these microphones. They won't be able to hear you unless you speak into a microphone. So steering committee members, if you want to raise your hand, you've got anything to add, I'll call on you, pick up the microphone and make sure you say into the microphone so that folks at home can hear you. And then when we get to public comment or kind of the Q&A portions of the meeting, we'll come around with a microphone so the people at home can hear what you have to say, or we'll try to repeat the question for them. But I think we're getting better at this, so we'll get right into the meeting. Up first, we've got 2 open session / public comment portions. We wanted to kind of give the attendees the first word and the last word. So is there anybody who would like a few minutes to address the community members and the committee? That's the smoke alarm going again. Do you want to take over for just a second, and then I'll deal with that?
Apparently they didn't expect us tonight, and the smoke alarm's been going off since we got here. So anybody out there have any comments, anything you want your neighbors to know, anything about Birch Bay that could be beneficial to anyone else? We'll have public comment after we do the presentation of our report as well. I suspect that's what most of the comments will be in regards to. So seeing none, I will give you one little update on my zip code effort. Basically, they have no idea what to do with it. We are nearing day 60 of the 60-day process. I'm giving them a little bit of grace. I wanted to get through this meeting before pushing harder on that, but I did move it up to our representative Rick Larson, since it is a federal issue, just to see if he could help push it along at all. But
do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, I started the process that exists. It changed in 2016 by an act of Congress. The law to create a unique zip code requires a request for it. It has a process of telling the reasons why you think an area needs a unique zip code. Some of my reasons were that we are a completely separate community than Blaine. I identify as from Birch Bay. I don't like when I'm online and I put in my zip code, it will only accept Blaine as my address. We have some shared street names, which is a confusion in its own. We're 10,000 people in our census designated place, and they're about 6,000. I think we deserve our own unique identifier. We also have, we've heard, and one of the residents proved actually that there is at least one case where a streaming service is charging the Blaine sales tax rate based on that 98230. And we don't know if it's being collected by Blaine or by Whatcom County. That's unfortunately too difficult to determine. However, just the fact that we're paying a rate which is higher than what we should be paying here in Birch Bay. So it would solve those issues as well. So just keep going on that.
Cool.
That's it. So no public comment.
All right, no public comment for now. We'll get going into the the then. Yorkson, would you mind helping pass out some reports to the folks?
The steering committee members will have them if we get some of these around.
And Chris, can I point you for changing the slides? You can go on to the next one. I'll give you a little bit of background, kind of what we did here, and then Lisa will help me go through the slides and kind of explain our findings and all that. But essentially, the county hired a consultant group to perform a feasibility study for the financial viability of the city of Birch Bay some years ago. It was published over for the past 6 months. We've kind of been going through their financial model and drawing some other conclusions from it. The point of the study, I guess, was to continue the conversation, they put it. So this is a continuation of that conversation. Slide, please. The central findings of this report that is handed out, and thank you so much to all the committee members who worked on this. It was a lot of hours, but I'm proud of what we put together, and I hope at least you find something in it of use. The central findings: could Birch Bay succeed as a city? The data and experience of Washington's newest cities prove that it can, if that is the will of the voters. Of course, this comes down to eventually, hopefully, a vote of the registered voters within the incorporation boundaries. A couple of other things we pulled from the report. So we do believe it is viable under several realistic scenarios. We have found that we pay more in taxes than we receive in services, something I've always kind of suspected, but I think we've got better information on that now. We do believe we could improve service levels without posting taxes. Cityhood would give us access to all sorts of grant opportunities and federal toolkits and municipal research service center guidance and things that we don't get to benefit from currently. And then local governments would provide greater accountability and better alignment with the community's priorities while supporting the existing districts that already serve us well. And Lisa, if you want to jump in at any point here. Next slide, please. How many is this the first meeting for anybody here? Okay. All right. We'll breeze through this part a little faster than normal, but this is kind of important context. So most of you probably know the last time this was voted on was 1992. That was defeated by the voters. There was a feasibility study in 2008. It was one of the things that came out of the steering committee back in the day. They put together a beautiful community plan, sub-area plan, I guess you'd call it, and then petitioned the county to perform a feasibility study. The feasibility study found that it was financially feasible at the time, but it hasn't gone to a vote since then. And the reason why it didn't at the time was because of the subprime mortgage crisis. As soon as the report came out, market imploded, threw all of the property tax figures out of whack. So they decided not to proceed at that time. And that's kind of why I got interested in this, is finding these old documents and going, it says here that it is feasible. We could govern ourselves and keep our tax dollars here, and it would only become more viable as our population grew. So next slide, please. You want to handle this one, Lisa?
Sure. Hello? Light is green, but it's not recorded.
We might have to share.
Try hitting the power button on the microphone.
Yeah,
Is it green?
yeah.
Go ahead, you can do it.
Talk right into it.
Talk right in.
Hello?
Yeah,
Oh,
you can do it.
we can turn it off and turn it back on secret. Okay, so on the screen is the current UGA boundaries, that red line. It has changed in the decades. Whatcom County established the urban growth area back in 1997 as they were implementing the Growth Management Act. And there's, the boundaries change, ebb and flow with the location of critical areas, with their calculations, complicated calculations as to land capacity analysis. But the bottom line is that urban growth areas, they're an area where urban growth is designed to go. It's designed to grow within the boundaries and not outside. That's a preservation for agricultural land, critical areas, industrial areas, things like that. So areas within the urban growth area can only be urban in nature, requiring urban level services. Counties aren't designed to provide urban level services. Counties are, in fact, required to provide an equal measure of service for all of their residents. So that could be somebody past Maple Falls gets the same level of service as somebody in Birch Bay where the density is coming. Generally, urban growth areas are areas attached to a city, and it's their plan to grow there next. So they start extending utilities and infrastructure into those areas, and they expect that to be the next area they annex into a city. Here we are in Birch Bay as a standalone UGA. There's 2 in Whatcom County. Well, there's 3. Cherry Point's one.
Columbia Valley.
Columbia Valley is the other one, up that Peaceful Valley, Kendall area, and then Birch Bay. Within those boundaries now, we are over 9,000 people. And the Growth Management Act states what it shows up there, number 4, cities are the units of local government most appropriate to provide urban governmental services.
Some of you may or may not know, I was appointed recently to the Planning Commission, so I'm one of your District 5 planning commissioners. What we're doing right now, so every 10 years there's a comprehensive plan update. It's mandated by the state, and basically the county has to estimate how much they're going to grow over the next 20-year planning period, and then where that growth is going to go. They want to preserve rural areas, so like areas outside of the UGA, out in the county. They're going with a pretty moderate growth plan, kind of the mid-range there. And kind of how it's worked as far as the planning that's come out of that is they'll have meetings with the different city officials, mayors, things like that, and they'll talk about, for example, Linden goes, well, we don't really want to expand because we're surrounded by valuable agriculture land. We need to be able to grow our food. So we'd rather the growth goes to, say, Birch Bay. And then they'll assign us 165 units or something like that we need to find space for. And the way they find space for that is by upzoning areas. So we've got a lot of urban residential mixed use, 6 dwelling units per acre. And they'll go, well, we got to be able to fit this many more houses in here. So we're going to up it to URM 8 dwelling units per acre. And those are the kind of decisions that are being made by mayors of other cities, planning and development services, employees, goes through the planning commission. We provide recommendations to the county council. I think I'm the only person from Birch Bay that's been a part of these conversations so far. So that's one of our motivators here.
The process requires that they engage the community, and as much as we've tried and gone to the meetings, provided comment. So some of you in this room, Dorley especially, we make it a point of going, but they are not engaging with the community. I think is the next slide.
They did come speak with the Birch Bay Community Advisory Committee last night. And I think they're paying more and more attention to that committee, which is good for us, but it's not the same access that a city has. Next slide, please. So here you've probably seen this one before, but 1992, the last time this went to a vote, the population of Birch Bay was 3,000. 2007, when the study came out, it was 5,900. Right now, the Washington Office of Financial Management Small Areas Estimates Program, I've said that a lot of times now, estimates our population in the UGA is about 9,000. The census designated place, which is a larger area that includes Birch Point, goes a little further east out to Kickerville Road. That's about over 10,000 now, right? Yep. And as far as the current comp plan, it hasn't been adopted yet. I think that's going to happen next month. But what they're projecting for us is another 2,500 people moving to Birch Bay over the coming couple of decades. What I find interesting is once you start getting to about 12,000 people, we're about 5 square miles Birch Bay. You're approaching the density of Ferndale, city of Ferndale today. So imagine the city of Ferndale today with one sheriff's deputy, 40 hours a week. Now, hopefully our services would improve, but yeah, so we're already larger than about 2/3 of the cities across Washington state. Next slide, please. Want to take this one? Let's alternate maybe, so I don't get sick of me.
Sure. So just as Matt said, the current comp plan update adds about 2,500 people to the existing boundaries of the UGA. The county's math, the land capacity analysis shows that we have room for that within our existing boundaries. Obviously there'd be some argument to that with our critical areas that we want to be respectful of. But we so far haven't been availed of a seat at the table to get too deep into that, but that's some of what the Community Advisory Council is working towards, and having Matt as a representative on the Planning Commission will help us with that as well. But there was also a couple of state laws that were passed in the past couple of years that allow for higher density in existing, say UR4, so you're in a traditional neighborhood, think Baycrest or Harborview Estates, where you can now put an ADU, so an additional dwelling unit on that same two, depending on the lot size, right? Yeah, you could have 2 additional dwelling units on your single family lot. That's how they're going to achieve that kind of density. So it's important to be paying attention to these things, and if we care about them, being responsible enough to comment, and hopefully it goes along with taking accountability for our own community. And
when those laws were written, I don't think they thought of standalone unincorporated urban growth areas like Birch Bay. I think they were thinking of like West Seattle, Bellevue, Bellingham. You're starting to see a lot of that in the cities where people go, I've got a detached garage in the backyard. I can turn that into a living space. I can condominiumize it, sell it off. It's how people are going to make their housing more affordable. And it applies to us because we're an urban growth area.
So as it says up there, for me, the real question is who shapes that growth locally here in our community.
Do the next slide, please, Chris. And so we have gotten a couple of questions, well, if the feasibility study said that it's not feasible, why are we still working on this? And the truth is we didn't think it told the whole story. And if we had been given a chance to comment along the process, maybe we would have been able to correct a couple of errors that the report made. The 2 biggest ones were it omitted a state shared revenue, so that motor vehicle fuel tax, the taxes you pay on gasoline at the pump, gets sent out to all the different cities and the counties based on a per capita rate. And that wasn't factored into the study. It was a good amount of money too. And then the second one was the total road miles. So they had an estimate in there as far as like road maintenance that was based on about 3 times the road miles that we actually have in Birch Bay. And we were able to confirm that with Public Works. I think what happened is there's a lot of private roads in Birch Bay, and they just did a GIS search of all the roads and went, okay, there's 90 some miles, but 2/3 of those are private, approximately. So we made those corrections in the models that we're going to show you. And they also left out grant funding too, but we'll come back to that. So next slide, please. So this is in your report, but we'll go over it here a little bit. So the high service level CAI/county model, that's the one that was presented in the report 5 months back, or was it 6 months now? Holy moly. It showed that we would have a $2 million deficit. The scope of work of the feasibility study said that it was to be they were supposed to estimate a same cost model. We don't think it represented the same as what we receive now. So the second model that we'll go through is our current service level, and that's an estimate of the taxes we pay compared to the services value of the services that we receive from the county. And that shows a surplus. So that means $2 million of money that could go to operate a city isn't coming back to Birch Bay that we pay in taxes. The balanced budget, no tax increase model is one that we came up with. With help from the advisory committee, thank you for that. We were able to obtain the model that CAI used. and essentially kind of backtrack out of it what they were estimating would be the salary and benefits packages that each of these staff members needed, and then there were some non-labor costs. So we were able to kind of play with the staffing numbers like a new city would, and design a city budget that would work with the taxes that currently pay. And then the last one is, the big conclusion of the feasibility study was that, it's going to cost too much and it's not feasible. Well, if the people did want that level of service, it'd be a slight tax increase. It's not a scenario that we recommend because I think a lot of us feel we pay enough taxes already, but we just wanted to show that the conclusion of the study was maybe a little biased. There's two important notes there that we'll kind of keep touching on because it's a little complicated, but these numbers here, so $5.1 million we're paying at the county right now, that is just the taxes that could go to city operation costs. When you sell a house, you pay real estate excise taxes, thousands of dollars every time. I think it's 2.4 million is what we are estimated to pay this year to the county. That would go towards things like sidewalks, parks. What am I leaving out? It's kind of capital improvements, right? Looking to Jonathan. And then the second item that we try to remind people is these scenarios reflect a fully serviced, fully staffed city on day one. In reality, there's a bow wave effect where let's say this goes to a vote and the community decides that we're ready for self-governance. From that day, the county would begin collecting the same taxes they're currently collecting and holding them until the city was operational. 6 months from that day, there would be an election for city council members within the proposed boundaries. And then once they were elected and the city opened its doors, they would start to receive that tax money. So you've got this, and then they would start hiring people slowly. It takes a while to do interviews, to put out applications, find, a place to house everybody, kind of a thing. So that bow wave effect, that startup timing, usually puts the city in a pretty good financial position if they spend wisely, budget wisely. That can essentially serve as the reserve for the new city. So it's too complicated to go into the predicting the timelines of all those things. So we're just pretending this is what it would look like if the city was, right out of the gate, fully functioning, fully staffed. Next slide, please. So back to we'll go into these in a little more detail. Again, this is the CAI county model, shows a $2 million deficit. It assumed fully staffed, fully serviced city on day one. Includes a really high public safety staffing level. It's a useful benchmark, but it's not the only path. Next slide, please. So this just shows the CAI model had us contracting for 9 officers from Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. Currently, we have 40 hours a week. Now, it's a little more complicated than that because if something big happens, the law enforcement from everywhere is going to show up. But as far as, deputies driving around, making sure people aren't driving crazy, or response times, it's a big deal for a population this dense. Most cities of our size have a lot more law enforcement. And kind of the way the math works too, you need 5.25 officers in order to provide 24/7 coverage. So they're assuming we need 2 at all times cruising around Birch Bay. Listen, what was noted, I think Chuck noted this, I thought this was an interesting observation, but the public safety budget itself was larger than the total deficit. So they could have solved this problem just by tuning that number of officer staff. Next slide, please. There was an article published in Cascadia Daily News yesterday. The title of the article was Analysis, Whatcom County employee numbers and their pay have ballooned under city's leadership. 221 full-time positions added, compensation jumped 38 million. I wanted to fit that in, but there was an interesting quote in here from Jed Holmes of the county executive's office that if you look at the big picture, local governments are dynamic organizations that expand and contract over time. They're constantly right-sizing based on community needs and the public's willingness to tax itself. I thought that was nice to see them acknowledge that what we're doing here is realistic. Next slide, please. So scenario 2, current service level. This one is probably the only one that we're not 100% confident in it because it is just an estimate. It would have taken us hundreds of hours, even if the county opened up its books and showed us where they spent money to track down, okay, they did this day, this employee was in this park and they were in this park. And so we did kind of a blend of a couple of different approaches to arrive at this value. One was some departments serve the entire county, whether or not they're incorporated. Some departments serve only the unincorporated areas. So we kind of looked at it and used our best judgment to estimate how much money is actually coming back to us based on our proportion of the population of the unincorporated Whatcom County and all of Whatcom County. So what we concluded was that we're sending more money to the county than we get back in services. And I think that's a fair conclusion to reach, considering statements made by our county executive last year. It is in my interest that it should not be a city because we get all the tax revenue. I don't think they'd say that if we were costing them money. And this will be posted online if you want to see that video. If you don't believe me, click that link and it'll take you to our YouTube where you can see that video. That was in a meeting of other mayors talking about where growth should happen, and they brought up the Birch Bay Corporation, and that was kind of the conclusion there. Next slide, please. So this is the one that I'm really proud of. You know, when the study came out, we were pretty disappointed. It kind of felt a little shut out. Once we got a hold of that model and we were able to see kind of the back end of it, it started to click. And Bob Jean, the incorporation expert who's been working on and off with our group, was really helpful in kind of going, hey, look, we can figure this out. This is just like designing a city. This is a good exercise. So what we did, and we won't go into I won't show you exactly what we did, but essentially, like I said, we pulled out the staffing numbers, and it's in the study there. Pulled out the staffing salaries, and it's the mid-range for these different positions. So I think they surveyed a bunch of cities and said, well, what are you paying your city manager? What are you paying your IT person? And then they kind of went in the middle there and said, salary and benefits is this much, and this is how much overhead they have for that, or non-labor costs. So we didn't make any changes to their salary assumptions. We didn't make any changes to the non-labor costs, which one could argue would go down with the solar staff. We wanted to make as few changes to it as possible so that it maintained as much credibility as possible. We added in grant cost recovery. We'll talk a little bit about that, but basically every city applies for grants. You know, we pay money to the state all sorts of different ways, in the federal government. Cities, municipalities, they go, hey, we need to build sidewalks so kids can get to school safer or whatever. They ask these organizations for money, they get some back, they're able to kind of write some of their staffing costs off with a portion of that. Usually it's between 20 and 30%. So we went with a 25% grant cost recovery. I think it was 2 million or 2.5 million in projected grants that we've received, which is, again, pretty conservative. A new city would be an excellent candidate for grants. Like, look at, well, we're a huge population, brand new city, first one in the state in 27 years. I think that would be a pretty good argument to make. We'll talk more about that later. What it showed, once we played around with the numbers, was that we could have a realistic city staff. It'd be a lean one. People would sometimes have to wear 2 hats, but we could do it and we could show a surplus with the taxes that we currently pay. Next slide, please. And so here's kind of a simplified look at what we did. The county's model had us at 32 staff. We reduced it down to 24.5. Public safety, we took it from 12 total staff to 7. So the 7 would be 5 deputies or contracted officers, records staff, and then a lieutenant. Parks and Recreation, we took down from 2 to 0. And that was because first, we already pay into a Parks and Rec district, Birch Bay Parks and Rec. And the couple of parks that the county would try to offload on us that they mentioned in the report are like Halverson Park. Do we need 2 full-time employees to paint the sign at Halverson Park once a year? It's a lovely park, but I think we'd be wasting money if we had 2 full-time staff making 6 figures working on that. And then the only other change we made was finance. They had a a full-time IT person in there. And couple of city managers that we talked to said, you're gonna be a brand new city if this happens. You're gonna have brand new equipment, brand new software. You're not gonna need someone full-time fixing email problems. So we made that a part-time position. And then the last one that's not mentioned, we were so close, it was like 0, I think. And we went, okay, how do we squeeze a little bit more out of it? Pay the city council members less. So we tuned that down to, I think, like they have 3,000 a year or something. Because why not? I'd like to see more politicians being paid less when budgets don't work out. So we did that. So core planning, permitting, city staff, management staffing levels, that's all unchanged. It was basically just number of officers, unless IP, the parts. You can do the next slide, please. And then, so this is the scenario 4. So this is the CAI county service level. That's 12 staff contracted from the sheriff's department, the 2 full-time parks people, the full-time IT person. They had us at a $2 million budget. Essentially, if you wanted to make that pencil out, it would work out to $16 extra a month for a $500,000 home, which is kind of the median in Birch Bay. I wouldn't be thrilled about paying that, but considering what we pay to maintain the Long Island Ferry, that's nothing. I'd cancel my Netflix, and if it meant police officers maintaining order in Birch Bay at all times and being able to have local representation. We're not presenting this necessarily as a recommendation, but more so to show that, the study concluded was not feasible. That's what it would take to make their idea feasible. And it's backed up by a survey that we put together in 2024. We kind of asked people, if services improved dramatically, would you be willing to pay a little bit more? And that's within that range of what people told us. So it's an option. But yeah, next slide, please. Do you want to talk a little bit about this, Charmin or Lisa?
think.
Oh, yeah.
You
Money.
can see it right there.
Awesome. Okay, I get to talk about revenue, and to me, this was exciting because even though we have the figures, we know what CAI has stated is our revenue, but there's obviously revenue that a lot of us don't even realize that's out there that as a city we'll be able to add to what we actually would have to begin with. So I'm briefly going to go about the revenue side and to show you the fact that BBIA believes Birch Bay is financially capable of becoming a city. We do have the CAI feasibility study, which states within its own report that this study is informational study and that the actual level of services for a future city would ultimately be determined by elected representatives and the community itself. This is one of the things that was very important to me. The CAI study came out and said, this is what it is, it's not feasible. That feasibility study is a tool. It's something that we could take, be able to look at and move forward, which is exactly what we've been doing with it. One of the most important things to understand that Birch Bay already generates substantial revenue today through sales tax, including online sales. How about that? We do online sales. We are taxed probably with 98230, which is a higher sales tax. So that made a big difference to me, and we don't even know what those figures are. So property tax, lodging tax, utility taxes, and other economic activities. So the question is not whether the revenue exists. It clearly does exist. The real question is where those revenues should go and whether more of them should remain here in Birch Bay to support local services, infrastructure, and community priorities. Next one. What this slide shows is that the future city of Birch Bay would not rely on just one revenue source. Like every city, revenue comes from multiple sources that are worked together. One example is the real estate excise tax, or the REIT, which is collected on property sales and dedicated towards capital improvements such as roads, parks, and infrastructure. Birch Bay currently generates $2.4 million annually in REIT revenues that goes to the county. However, because Birch Bay is unincorporated, the UGA, these funds are controlled by Whatcom County. This limits local decision-making on how and when these dollars are reinvested into our own community. As a city, Birch Bay could also qualify for additional REIT authority through the Washington's Growth Management Act. This actually increases it 0.025% additional money that would come to the city of Birch Bay that we don't see at all now. Tourism is another major revenue source. Birch Bay attracts thousands of visitors every year, and Whatcom County benefits significantly from lodging tax revenues generated here through overnight stays and rentals. Also, did you know that we have at least 300 B&Bs currently active here at Birch Bay? That's a lot, isn't it? And that's, again, tax revenue that would remain here at Birch Bay. As a city, these funds could remain local and be reinvested into tourism, infrastructure, economic community events, parks, waterfront improvements, and economic development. Impact fees are another important tool. These are fees collected from new development to help pay for the roads, parks, and public infrastructure needs to support growth. Right now, these decisions, again, are made at the county level. Local control would allow Birch Bay residents to prioritize projects that directly benefit our community. The important point is diversification. A city budget is not built from one revenue source. It is built from multiple revenue streams working together to support services and long-term planning. Next slide, please. And this is the final slide that highlights something extremely important that was not included in the CAI feasibility study. The report did not include grant funding as part of the revenue projections because their position was that grants are not guaranteed. But the reality across Washington state tells a much different story. History has shown that newly incorporated cities in Washington have successfully applied for and received substantial grant funding during their early years. And why is that? Here's where things get really important. New cities don't want to apply for grants. They begin, new cities don't wait to apply for grants. We do it immediately. Grant funding is not a bonus. It's a core part of how cities build revenue. Are there grant funders who are eager to help new cities? Absolutely. In fact, state agencies are not neutral on this. They are structured to support communities like Birch Bay. In fact, many grant programs are specifically designed to fund new growing cities and communities building out infrastructure. And we know that. We've researched it and found out that there are grants out there that are waiting to be able to fund Birch Bay, which I was very excited about because I love to write for grants. And when you step back and look at Birch Bay as a whole, you've got our waterfront, our tourism economy, our family-focused recreation, and our growing population. It becomes very clear that Birch Bay aligns extremely well with the kinds of projects these programs are designed to support. The important point is this. These grant programs already exist. Incorporation does not create them. It simply gives Birch Bay direct access to funding opportunities we currently do not have as unincorporated area of Whatcom County. Those opportunities include state and federal grants, the planning and capacity grants, transportation, infrastructure funding, parks, recreation, waterfront grants, economic development, tourism programs, public works board loans, which are loans, but they're low interest loans that can be utilized until the grant money comes through. Okay, local improvement district tools, that's where a property owner wants to come together with the city and be able to maybe put sidewalks in or improve their roads, and they can come together and be able to finance them that way. So when evaluating feasibility, it's important to look not only at the current revenues, but also at the additional funding, tools, and investment opportunities that incorporation makes possible. So ultimately, this conversation is not just about numbers. It's about local control, local investment, and whether Birch Bay's future should be guided more directly by the people who live here. Thank you.
I want to add another one in there that we didn't really get into in the report. But, we started this group 3 years ago, every year I've paid special attention. There's been an article in the Northern Light or the Bellingham Herald or some newspaper that talks about how much money cities in Whatcom County have gotten from Representative Rick Larson. And I'm no kidding, every year it'll be $37 million to Washington or Whatcom County cities. And I look at it, like, why is Birch Bay not getting in on that? We're larger than some of them. We're paying the same taxes that they are. When State Senator Shoemake came and spoke to us in year 1 or 2, she said, hey, this money's sitting here. We got to spend it somewhere. We don't have people coming from Birch Bay asking for, we need this for streetlights or stop signs or sidewalks or whatever, or schools or whatever it is. If you were a city though, your city council and mayor could come to us and say, hey, we really need this. And we've been paying a lot of taxes. So, we need a little help here, but it's been frustrating to kind of see those articles every year and go, missed out on another improvement. But all right, next slide, please. So this is just touching on that startup timing and the bow wave effect a little bit again. So keep in mind with all of this, a new city would take years to get up and running. It'd be quite a long process. So over that time, the revenue would be flowing in at the same rate, cost would be increasing throughout that time period. The other thing to maybe think about is if we're on track to have the density of current day Ferndale, this might be something we want to start before it's a problem. I feel like we should have done this in 2008, or we should have done it in 1992. But, here we are. What's the same? Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. That's kind of how I feel about it. So next slide, please. Why does local control matter? Because there's a lot of decisions that affect Birch Bay that are being made by people who don't live in Birch Bay. I hear a lot of questions when I'm out and about and talking to neighbors and whatnot, that if we become a city, there's going to be all these rules, or they're going to do away with fireworks. Those are all things that are discussed, but it's discussed at the county level by representatives. Ours doesn't live in Birch Bay, he's in Ferndale, got a couple of at-large people who represent us well. They're great people. They don't understand Birch Bay. Plus they're 3 of 7, that includes a bunch of people that live in Bellingham. So one day, if we don't incorporate, the county is going to go, they are shooting off a ton of fireworks out there. Who do you think you want making the decision on what happens with that? Do you want it to be Birch Bay people, or do you want it to be a bunch of people in Bellingham? Or what's another example? We heard someone say, if we become a city, we're going to get a bunch of fast food restaurants, franchises. That could happen today. The water slides are for sale. Someone might buy that up and go, this would be a great place for a strip mall, and we'll put a Jack in the Box over here and a Chipotle over here, and it'll hurt the local businesses that we love. A city can say, we're not doing franchises. We're going to invest in our local businesses. What's another example? Is that enough examples for you? But basically, sir?
But you mentioned schools.
Schools.
So we have more people in Blaine, there must be also more children.
Yes. The gentleman asked a question about the schools and if there's more children in Birch Bay than Blaine. The 2020 census, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'll try to be approximate, but I think it's 2/3 of the students that go to Blaine School District live out here. When I was a kid, I went to Blaine schools, K through 12. I was one of the weird kids that lived out in Birch Bay. Now they're all out here, so it's changed a bit. We will get into a little bit later, but we do hope that if community decides to incorporate, that we can strengthen the existing districts. But that is something, it would give us more representation. Dorlee?
There could be comp plan or our comprehensive plan in 2000 to 2004. We had, and Carol probably remembers, because we represented Cottonwood together.
Yeah,
We represented Cottonwood together.
when you did the 2004
Yeah, we
adopted
had
community plan.
3 representatives from each of 11 reaches, we call them. And we had long discussions about fast food restaurants. And I remember that we made the decision that there would be no fast food restaurants on the drive. Particularly because we talked about the amount of vehicles and all that would bring down on the drive. We were protecting the drive for the resort commercial. And so we were discussing that 25 years ago.
Yeah, thank you. Do they pay attention to that comp plan adopted community? No? Okay, good. So basically, I think this puts it about as well as we can. No form of government can guarantee that every decision will please everyone. However, decisions about Birch Bay's future are more likely to reflect Birch Bay's values when they are made by the people who live here. Next slide, please. So it would add local representation, but we already have a number of agencies and districts that service really well that this would not be intended to replace. Birch Bay Water Sewer District, you got Blaine Birch Bay Parks and Rec District, 2 fire districts serve us, Birch Bay Watershed and Aquatic Resource Management. Did I get that right? BB Warm Blaine School District, the library system, and the Chamber of Commerce. We essentially have all of the services that a city needs. We just don't have local representation. And we've hosted a number of these different groups at meetings throughout the years, and a lot of them seemed pretty enthusiastic about having someone they could partner with who could promote them, kind of advocate on their behalf, and kind of tie everything together so that we get the best value we can out of these. But the intention is not to pull out of the Blaine School District and do this and do that, because they do a great job currently. So next slide, please. And this was a suggestion from Bob Jean. We've had if you haven't been to a meeting where we've discussed it or he's spoken, but we maybe a year or so ago got hooked up with a guy, just calling around and talking to new cities and stuff. And they went, "Have you talked to Bob?" We're like, "No, who's Bob?" "Oh, well, he's the expert." So there's this gentleman who, the way his career went, he became a city manager, and new cities formed. This was in the 90s when there was a boom of like 15 cities incorporated in 13 years. And he became the guy who would come in and he'd manage the city off the ground. And he's still around, and he's super generous with his time. And so he's kind of helped us answer some of these questions as they've come up and given us a little bit of guidance and a lot of encouragement. And what he pointed out to us, and we verified with our research, but the new cities have all done pretty well. So of Washington's 6 most recently incorporated cities, 5 currently pay a lower city property tax rate than their county's general rate. Looking more broadly, 76% of the 17 Washington cities incorporated since 1983 pay, on average, 10.6% less than their host county rate. There's a little more information on that on our sound bites. We put out a sound bite in May of last year that kind of talked about that. But becoming a city isn't a guarantee that your taxes are going to go up. Cities are just inherently better designed to deliver services to urban areas. Next slide, please. So core takeaways: we're large enough, we're capable enough to give this a serious look. The county/CAI deficit depends on high cost service assumptions, staffing levels. It is possible to balance a budget without a tax increase, and it would allow us access to all sorts of different tools and local accountability. People would be making decisions to live in your community. Someone makes a bad decision on the city council, you're going to bump into them at Basin. That's not going to happen now with the county council. Not that they're fine people. They're just, their responsibility is to do what's best for the entire county, not do what's best for Birch Bay. I would rather be represented by people who want to do what's best for us, who live in our neighborhoods and know it. One last thing that I'll kind of add in here that we didn't go into, but I think County Executive Sidhu brought this up when he came and spoke to us, but one part of the equation is, do you have people in your community who can handle it, who can take on that responsibility, who have the experience? I don't know if that was the case in 1992. I was a little kid living in Birch Bay Village, or a couple of years after that, but now I have no doubt that we have the intellectual capital in Birch Bay to self-govern. We've got, because we're, somewhat of a retirement community. We've got,
Look at us.
I didn't mean to look at you. I'm looking at you for moral support. But we have retired city managers, we have retired city accountants, we've got city attorneys, we've got people on the advisory committee.
Finance.
Some of the folks at the Chamber of Commerce would make excellent city council members. We've got the people with the skills here now, no doubt. I've met a lot of them through doing this, and I would trust. I mean, there's dozens of people who I would trust with making decisions for our community. So the question is no longer, can Birch Bay afford it? Next slide, please. We think the question is, do Birch Bay residents want a local government more directly aligned with local priorities, service expectations, and community character? What do we want as far as services? What kind of control do we want? How should those locally generated revenues be invested? And who should be making decisions about Birch Bay's future? I think we're moving past the point of, can we afford this? It's, are we ready for that responsibility? Do we want that? Next question, next slide, please. And so with that, does anyone have any questions, any comments? If I can come around with a mic, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Don't be shy. Yes, sir.
One of the concerns in my mind is we've gone through a report where we've discovered additional funding sources. We've created a new model with reduced services. My question would be is Whatcom County, officials at Whatcom County recognizing some of the work we did, or are we still on an uphill battle against their CII report?
I don't think that they're going to acknowledge that it can be done. They're facing an $8 million budget deficit next year and a $14 million budget deficit the following year. So I don't think they want to lose our revenue. We've thought about going to those meetings, making public comment, doing that kind of thing. I think the best course of action is just to get this show on the road with a notice of intent to incorporate, start working through the process. There's another review portions of the Battery Review Board. You look at this roadmap, it starts with organization. That's what we're doing now. There's a proposal where you say, here's the boundaries we want, here's the form and type of government we want, the name, Birch Bay, obviously. There's a petition period, and then the Battery Review Board looks over everything. They do their own studies. We would have to submit all sorts of, here's how we would budget it, and here's our tax revenue. And a lot of that work's been done over the past 3 years. But that would be kind of another chance to prove ourselves that I think would be more productive than trying to convince the county that it can be done that way. I don't know if I should say this, but
Go ahead.
I will. I don't know if they're the authority on running a balanced budget.
Yeah.
So I'm sometimes not surprised that the study that they commissioned couldn't balance the budget. Any other thoughts or questions? Dora Lee, you already got a chance. I saw this gentleman's hand up, so over here. I'll come back to you though.
Probably mentioned this before and I've missed it. Expanding boundaries once you incorporate, is that a difficult process?
The question was about expanding boundaries once you incorporate. It would be the process that the different cities are going through right now. So as part of the comp plan update, they're coming and saying, like Bellingham, for example, removed a portion of their urban growth area, the Geneva neighborhood, and then because they wanted to add someplace in North Bellingham where they were going to do some stuff. And so on the planning commission, the way that kind of manifested was they come to us and they go, you need to rezone the Geneva neighborhood to rural 5 dwelling units per acre. And we were going, what are you talking about? It's built up like it's a much higher density, but the cities expand, they contract. Blaine recently tried to make a move on Birch Point. It's a tough process. You have to demonstrate that you don't have the land capacity to support the population that you're attracting, and it has to go through land allocation analyses. The county planning commission requires adoption from the county council, and there's a boundary review board, and different hearing examiners. It's not an easy process, so we want to get the boundaries right for first time off. What we've been told though is we would not be able to put on a notice of intent to incorporate areas that are currently outside of an urban growth area, because that's all studies that's been done already. So we're kind of restricted to what the county has planned for us already, but it could be different within there. Does that kind of answer your question? It's complicated.
All right, when you said something about almost 9,000 people in the Birch Bay area, is that full-time residents? It's not counting Canadians or snowbirders or anything else. Does that make a difference?
It makes a difference in that as far as the law is concerned with incorporation in Washington state, you can't incorporate unless you have a population of over 1,500. Once you get over the 7,500 threshold, the Boundary Review Board can recommend against it or propose modifications to your boundaries, but they cannot tell you no, because you've kind of achieved the population that should be a city, is the way the law is written. One could argue, I mean, there's days in the summertime where there's probably another 5,000 people here. 4th of July, especially, maybe more than that. But as far as is that accurate, you think? Yeah, it feels like it. We did have some data a while back from the Birch Bay Water and Sewer District that estimated the population kind of based on usage. That was higher, but it's not the most credible data. What we would have to go with on a notice and forward would be the Washington Office of Financial Management is the most credible information there.
And that number, for those who may not have seen Matt nodding, the 9,000 is from the Office of Financial Management, current population, full-time residents in Birch Bay.
Dorley, you had another question?
I didn't exactly have a question, but I appreciate what Sharman was talking about with grants. And I have a list. I just sat here and made a list since 2014 of the grants that Birch Bay has acquired. And this is by people who are not professional to write grants, but we have worked with Whatcom County, with the government of Washington State, and we have come up with some $23 million of grants that have come in. And I'm just going to name a few things that we have because of this. We have the BP Heron Center, was built for $150,000 from BP, Cherry Point, and a ton of hours by 2 retired construction fellas that helped, and a ton of product that came in, lighting, and one of the lighting companies came in and spent 2 days dragging wires and all, volunteering for our community. The children's toy in Birch Bay State Park was $50,000. It was a $50,000 grant from our Park and Rec District. And excuse me, it was $50,000 and a grant of $30,000 from Birch Bay Park and Rec. And then there was other donations to come. BP made another donation. So we have that wonderful play toy in the park, which greets people that come to visit Birch Bay. And it was one of the things that the state park was always, when people graded the state park for staying there, people said it would have been perfect if there was a children's play toy, because families look forward to that when they come to the park. The beach park in Birch Bay was a $2.4 million from the County Conservation Future Funds. Many of us that worked on that lobbied the county for 18 months to purchase the beach park. So they purchased it for $2.4 million. We got an RCO grant for $1 million, an LTAC grant for $1.8 million, and that's all sitting there now to help develop the park. Pedestrian walkway, we all love that. And that was $15 million. So that was wonderful. It only took 45 years to make it happen. And that money came from everywhere, federal, state, REIT, port, and a lot of different things came into that. The Vote Library Express, we got a Washington State Commerce grant for $2 million. The Friends raised 600,000. And we had to purchase the vote house and property. That's the way the library works. So we purchased that property and now the library owns it and comes in and takes care of it. So that's 23 million, over $23 million. So that can happen in a big way.
Let me know if there's any other questions or comments. We did get a couple that came in online. Are grants available annually? If not, I have concerns about using the grants in long-term budgeting.
Yes,
Yes.
annually.
And then does this model imply that some of our current taxes to the county would be redirected to Birch Bay? I'm sure Whatcom County would provide some services still, and should that be a part of the financial plan? So yeah, that's accounted for in the plan, and yes, essentially if you look at your property tax bill, there's two items. A lot of it are levies and bonds and stuff that you pay to the districts that service well, like there's a lighting district and DD Warm and that kind of stuff. There's two items on there, the county road fund and then the county road diversion fund. Those total up, I think the levy rate is 0.87, so 87 cents per thousand of assessed value of your home. That's money that's currently going to Whatcom County, of which 40% goes to the Long Island Ferry. That would stay with us now. And then there's portions of the sales tax and there's portions of the REIT taxes. So those numbers that we're showing there, that's the money that would fund a city and fund improvements and things like that, that currently aren't staying with us. And then might be good to note that the future city of Birch Bay would essentially need to opt in to the rural library district. That's a great thing. So the way that works, do you want to talk about that? You're here. And the library district was one of the first groups that came and explained this to us. So
Dimer Smith, I'll be the manager of the new library when it's open. And thanks to all of you that have supported us over the years. It's going to be under construction starting in June, so the renovation is going to be starting. The way it works for our district is we are part of the county. So the Whatcom County Library System generally for cities, all the cities have annexed in to our district. Linden annexed in the late 70s. Ferndale annexed in around the same time. We would need to annex in, and what that would mean was we would say we want to be part of the Whatcom County Library System. We all have to vote. And then we would annex Birch Bay in to the system. Now, the difference between Linden and Birch Bay, for instance, is the city of Linden manages, they own our building and they take care of that building. For Birch Bay, the Whatcom County Library System owns our building, so the Whatcom County Library System would continue to be the building owner and supply staff. But the thing that is weird about that is we would be part of the Whatcom County Library System if we said yes. If we voted it down because we thought we would save a tax, I guess we could try to open our own library. That's pretty complicated. But once we annex, if we decided to annex in, then we would have library services. The taxes that we're paying to the county now for our library district would end up coming to Birch Bay to support the library district. Does that make sense? So that is how that works.
what I kind of like about being a part of a library district and having a fire district separate from the city is it does cap the total property taxes that the city can collect. So I think it's something like a city that's providing library and fire services can charge up to $2.44 per thousand property taxes because they've got these extra entities that they need to support. Yeah.
So for our taxing district, we have a cap. 50 cents is the cap that the library system can go up to. We cannot go over 50 cents. So we have a cap with that, and that's how we can do the property tax. When we go out for a levy and we're asking for an increase, the increase is to get us as close to what we need So our levy last year, for instance, was 44 cents. We were not going over the 50 cent or getting close to 50 cents. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's one thing to note. Fire district can ask for a little bit more, but the library system is capped. So it would stay the same if we were annexing in, if we were a city.
Any other questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
I have a question about the current projects that we're running in Birch Bay right now. I love the berm, I love the park, all of this stuff that's going on, but I feel myself that we've kind of been misdirected, misled into certain things by the county. We weren't supposed to lose parking at the berm. We did lose parking at the berm. We've lost access to the berm. We now have a park that we're paying taxes on, which is a great park, which we finally got. We're not even utilizing like we used to in the past. So I guess my question is, and I understand about the grants, I've been involved with that in my years. I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we going to continue on to develop these programs and continue on with this stuff? And I'm hoping that we do this as a phase-in thing. But I'm trying to look for a little more forward-looking and a little bit more truthfulness to what we are actually going to receive.
Thank you. Well, the truth is, we can't speak with certainty on 100% certainty on most things, because these are decisions that would come down to an elected city council that who knows what that's going to look like. The park, though, in the feasibility study, the Birch Bay Beach Park was a park that they did not mention transferring to Birch Bay, so that would stay a county park. Trying to think who would best be able to speak to that.
I'm not really concerned about
Yeah.
Birch Bay State Park because
Or the beach park, pardon.
I'm talking about the beach park.
Yeah.
That just sits there, but only dogs running around.
Yeah.
And
That is part of it. It's
portable toilets for seniors that are trying to get to the berm. And then in this past, on the 4th of July, we're getting new plantings put into the berm, which I think is great. But you get to watch people just walk all over that and break it down and tear it up because they had no access to that. And the higher the plants get, the less we get to see of the vista of what people came out here to see in the first place.
Pat, you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Pat Allison. Being a city would give us political power that we can communicate with the county on what's needed and what we want. So that's my answer to you. And actually, there's some groups that are leery of the political power that Birch Bay would have and would hope that we don't become a city.
Thank you.
My name's Bill. I live right over here. What is it, Cottonwood? Anyway, I see how we're going. It's been 3 years and I keep wondering, when do I vote? And what is the, I know we're plugging along and everybody wants it yesterday, but what is the estimated time frame
to get down
for
that road.
all this? How far we're gonna get to before we get to a point where this may become a city?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back, thank you for the question, or statement. That kind of goes back to this roadmap. We front load a lot of the research, essentially to get through this and get it on the ballot. It's a year to 18 months. But I would like to start that sooner rather than later. We got the 250th anniversary of the United States coming up.
Yeah.
And you say what you want about politics currently, but I think our founding principles are pretty cool. I think it would be an excellent time to issue a notice of intent to incorporate and start the process of giving our community the opportunity to decide how they wish to be governed. So that's kind of my personal goal. We will maybe start to move on in the meeting so that we can get to the point where we'll talk about next steps. if there's any last questions or comments, we move on. There'll be a opportunity for more public comment later. But let's come back to that. Charmin, do you want to give the treasurer's report? Thanks for all the nice questions and comments and everything.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this treasurer's report from April 14th to May 21st. We had a starting balance of $2,629.49. For income, we had a donation from a steering committee member of $100. We also had, again, another steering committee donation of $150. What I mean by that, it's these people up front that are funding exactly what we're doing. It takes money to do this, and I so appreciate the donations. C-Shop, again, same thing. We have $200 deposit for April and May, and dividends, 10 cents for the month of April. Yay, $450, 10 cents income. We do have expenses. We have Zoom, which is we're glad to have because that way we've got our meetings taped. People can go online anytime and watch them. $104.44 a month for that. North Bay lets us use their church facilities, $100 a month. We have constant contact email program that we use as frequently as we can, 8813. We have a mailbox at Birch Bay Storage, $25. And this month was a double hit for a Zoom because it wasn't on last month's treasurer's report of 104. So our expenses were $422.01, but we still have an account balance of $2,657.58.
Great. All right, moving right along. We got about 16 minutes left if we want to try to end on time, which I like. But let's get back into old business. At the end of the last meeting, we had a motion introduced to dissolve BBIA. Just kind of, well, do you want to speak to it, Lisa?
Yes, I would like to withdraw the motion I made at the last meeting, which was to discuss dissolving the BBIA. We have worked together on some bylaw revisions. I believe Michael may go over these bylaw revisions, which satisfies myself and some of the others that had concerns about moving forward with the bylaws the way that they were. And we believe that we have found an alternative path. Maybe we need to explain why we need to dissolve BBIA. I think Michael will describe that with these changes.
Micah, you want to pick up Mike and
Lisa? It is, I don't know. I don't want to get bound up in a lot of procedure, but according to our bylaws about Robert's rules or Bob's rules, once a motion is made and seconded and the chair acknowledges it, you can't withdraw it. I think we should just table it and not vote on it.
So there never was a motion.
Oh, there's our
Oh, okay.
secretary.
It's a notification.
That's even better.
There was no record of somebody moving it, seconding, or voting on.
Okay, then I withdraw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right on. Oh, and by the way, I was thinking about the fast food thing. Sorry, just to take like
No, go for
seconds. But when I was a teenager here, the Halversons in their general store in front of it on the beach side had a little hamburger shack, which was wonderful. And then over close to the C-Shop, there was a car service fast food place opposite the Palms Drive-In. And the speed limit was 5 miles an hour, by the way.
So I think the sense that you may be getting is that we think there are positive reasons to move forward with incorporation. We've already got somebody that wants to vote tomorrow on it. And that is, if you look at your agenda, the last 2 pages are reproduction of our current bylaws. And we've highlighted some of the things in yellow. In section 2, it says, if found feasible, advocate for incorporation to give residents of Birch Bay more direct control over the future of the community. So we think that the work that we have done, this report indicates that there are several scenarios that are financially feasible. We can have all sorts of services that we can't afford, and that makes it not feasible. But the base level of services that we get today are well within our budget, and we can even improve, particularly in the security side of it with the police force and the local control of being able to make our own decisions about projects and how we want to run our community. Under item 2.3, it said, should a feasibility study and sense of Birch Bay residents be positive to advocate for and advance the incorporation process through a citizen initiative? And so I'm suggesting, I don't think we need to make a motion on it, that we have achieved that, and that the purpose of the BBIA is now to move forward advocating for incorporation. As Matt has said, we don't know what the final budgets of revenues and expenses will be. That would be up to a city government that you would elect within this community, to whatever level of comfort you had in terms of taxes and other revenue sources. But there's enough evidence here that we could do it. And so our sense is that it's something worth doing. To move forward, we've suggested a few changes in the bylaws because we're entering a new sort of tempo, I guess. We're going to have to move quickly. The next steps are for us to write out a proposal for a new city that has to identify what the type of city is, whether it's a mayor or a manager structure, the boundaries. You've seen the UGA boundaries. Are we going to stick to those, or are we going to do something else? Once that's done, we have to gather 10% of the
Registered voters.
Signatures
on a petition.
500 or 600.
Yeah.
We have to gather those signatures to say, yes, we want to vote on it. It's not voting to say yes or no. It's just saying, yes, we want to vote on it. We want the opportunity for the community to make that decision. That then goes to the Boundary Review Board, which hasn't met for a couple of decades now.
The statutory timeline on that is 180 days for them to look at. You, if you're a nerd like me, you should look at all what they consider there. But typically what we've learned is they end up needing more time than that to analyze the effect on neighboring jurisdictions and effect on utilities and effect if it's financially viable and all that kind of stuff. But that's a process, and it's a lot of paperwork too.
And,
So
and right now they only need in July and January.
There you go. So there's a number of limitations. As much as some of us would like to be able to go out and vote next month, it's just not going to happen. The point is that to move this forward, we're suggesting of revising some of the bylaws. The first being that this kind of a membership meeting not be held every 3 months. And the reason for that is it takes an awful lot of energy of the people on the steering committee and whoever else is involved to put these meetings together. We think we've passed over the process of investigating and trying to provide enough information for people to make their minds up. So we don't need to meet every 3 months. We're recommending that there be at least an annual meeting. That doesn't mean it will only be an annual meeting. We could call meetings as we progress if we feel there's more information that needs to go out to the general public. The second thing that we're recommending is that the steering committee meets 4 times a year instead of monthly. And it's for basically the same reason. Instead of saying every 3 months, because that might not line up with some of the activities that need to be done, like signature gathering and making presentations, and that would constrain us to move forward. So we might have 2 meetings in 2 months and then nothing for 6 months if we're waiting for signatures to be gathered or we're waiting for the Boundary Review Board to be evaluated. And the other one is to allow the executive to be responsible for the strategy and vision of the campaign, so that again, we can streamline the process. As you can see highlighted at the very bottom of the last page, there needs to be a 2/3 majority of the membership, not the steering committee, the membership, to pass any revisions to the bylaws. 14 days notice before we can hold a meeting. And so what we're suggesting is kind of implied at the top of the first page is that our next scheduled meeting, which would be June 18th, that we would have that open to the membership. It would be a special meeting as the bylaws allow. We would get that notice out right away, I would hope, not wait for 14 days to allow people to see what is being recommended and hold that kind of a special meeting of the entire membership to vote on the changes to the bylaws.
Can I just add that the membership is basically anybody who comes to a meeting who has an interest in Birch Bay. So when we created this group, we structured it in this fashion so that if you own property here, you had a business here, you worked here, or you lived here full time, you could have a say in it. Because when you get to the vote at the end of the road, it's just registered voters that can vote, and we wanted, non-residents or Canadian second homeowners or
businesses,
folks who have an interest in the community to have be able to come to these meetings and talk and share stuff. So it would be a vote of everybody. Anything else, Michael?
Not for me, but there's questions.
Couple of questions there.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Lisa.
No, wait,
Wait for the mic, please.
The Boundary Review Board allowed it easily last time.
In 92.
Yeah. We had no trouble getting an okay from the Boundary Review Board.
If it's like anything else with the government, I bet it's a little more complicated these days, but I hope we have the same experience. Diane has another question.
Yeah, Matt, so I'm concerned about the number. So it says 2/3 of the membership, but what do we consider the membership if everybody's able to be counted?
So it would be like if we were having that. Oh, Lisa, you want to talk to me?
I believe it states, Michael can read it, but I believe it's
Yeah,
the members who
let
were
me-
present at the meeting. So
Yes, these bylaws may be amended. It's on the back page, section 6, part 1, by 2/3 majority vote of the BBI members present at a regular or special BBI meeting. So however many people show up on June the 18th, once we've published it, that would be the constituted group, and we need 2/3 of those people to vote in favor to get this passed.
I actually don't think that's correct, because section 3 says that association membership is attained by registering with contact information to general meetings. So lots of people can come, but not everybody may have given us their email or contact information. So
at those
Yeah.
meetings, we usually have a sign-in sheet if
Yeah.
we think there's going to be an association.
yeah,
We have the sheet and whether they're registered or not, and they can register on the
And
spot.
there's a contact form, I think, on the front page of the
Right.
website
Right.
too. You can. That's
Yeah,
how
I-
people get our emails.
yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just saying that not everybody would have signed that form, so not everybody is necessarily a member just because they're here.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. Any other thoughts or questions or anything from the steering committee members?
So are we to discuss these proposed changes, or?
Yeah, if you'd like to, we can discuss a little bit now. We're kind of getting near the end of the meeting. There'll be more discussion then, but if you've got something, feel free to
Well,
start now.
I'm not sure that you can have a lot more discussion then, because don't we have to approve these changes as a steering committee, and then they go out to the membership, and then we don't change them again and approve them again, because then we need another 14 days.
Well, this is, I guess, yeah, if you have any friendly amendments or you want to make some requests, you could do it now. Yeah.
Yeah,
But this is what Michael's proposing.
I'm a little bit concerned over the steering committee changes. Initially, the steering committee was formed to have representation across the community in the various zones in the community, and that the various committees and reports and strategies would come to the steering committee for discussion and essentially approval.
But the way that the amendment reads is that the steering committee supports the strategy of the executive committee. They can basically whatever the executive committee decides, the steering committee has to go along with if it's in the bylaws that they have to support it. So I don't know, my amendment, I guess, would be that the executive committee will be responsible for the strategy and vision of the campaign. I think that's appropriate. You can't have a large committee doing this. But I think that the executive committee then has to report to the steering committee and at least get some sort of sign off.
Okay.
Very, very small thing. I think it's great that we enshrined in this that we want to conduct ourselves consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act. That act applies to legislative bodies and advisory bodies. To legislative bodies, we're neither of those. Could we clarify to say the values of, or something like that? Just semantics, but I think it's important.
Okay.
So is there some recommendation for a change in the wording? It'd be nice to get in I don't think we need to vote on it, Chuck, because the bylaws are specific that it's the membership that makes that. But it'd be nice to bring forward be able to put out 14 days, 21 days ahead so that the membership knows. And I think actually under normal rules, you could still make changes at the meeting itself. All that's necessary is a 14 days notice that there are some bylaw recommendations or bylaw change being recommended.
I think we should continue to discuss this to avoid boring everybody who came out here tonight. Maybe we'll consider some of these adjustments between now and the next meeting, but we can definitely get the notice soon so that we've got proper time.
Absolutely, we can discuss it between now and then. It's just that we have a number of folks that aren't sort of in the steering committee wavelength. So if there's any other suggestions or questions about the proposed changes, then I think now is the time to get them on the table at least so that we can consider whether there's alternatives to be proposed on June 18th.
Okay. Any other thoughts? We've got a little bit of time, like a minute, but we can go later if there's anybody who wants to make public comment. So right before we close out the meeting, is there anything anyone else would like to say? Take a few minutes to just speak. I don't know if I should let my mom speak. Joking. I love you.
I wanted to thank all the members of the steering committee, executive committee, any of the other committees, because I know the amount of work that you guys have put into this and I appreciate it. Also want to thank Dora Lee and Carol and all of the others, Pat, Patricia, the library lady, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but all the other people who've worked tirelessly for our community for no pay and just to make Birch Bay and keep Birch Bay a great place to live. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for all that you do, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll add in there too, Chris comes to these meetings and does the audiovisual for us and does a great job of that. I'd sure rather be outside enjoying the sunshine right now. And for North Bay Community Church that's hosted us for 3 years, they didn't have to do that. I'm sure they've got a little bit of flack for letting us come and have meetings here, but there's really no other places in the community besides churches to have meetings like this. So yeah, thank you to them too. Well, thanks, Chris. All right, anything else before we adjourn? All right, thank you all for coming.
Whoa, we need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, well, is that what you're doing? All right, Dorkson seconded, thank you so much. Meeting adjourned.
All in favor, aye.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks all for coming. Next meeting will be Thursday, June 18th. We'll be voting, everybody will be voting on these bylaw amendments and kind of the path forward.